Hello everyone and welcome to the second chapter of the course. In this particular video, we're going to be dealing with the position arising after d5, bishop d3, and black plays the move knight f6. But before we jump right into the theory part, I'd like to say a few words about this variation that we're playing with bishop to d3. So as I said in the quick starter section as well, I think this plays really nicely against the win-over players that usually prefer going bishop b4 against knight c3. And I think this line is also giving some headaches to the Rubinstein players. Those that after knight c3 / knight d2 prefer to take on e4 and have sort of, this kind of unique approach against all the systems. So yeah, I think if you are somewhere rated, let's say, below FIDE master level, I think you can use this bishop d3 French as a lifetime repertoire. I think you can just build around this repertoire. I mean, I will be making constant updates to the lines if anything new comes up. And I think this can suit very well as, you're only opening against the French. Or, if you're like a stronger player, like a grandmaster, I think, it would be like a little bit trickier to play only this line because people will start preparing at some point. But I think this is still going to do quite well, as we see the example of Vladislav Kovalev and Vladimir Onischuk, two players over 2650 that are playing this line with white on a regular basis. So yeah, I mean, if you don't want to have this as your only opening against the French, I think at the very least it could be like a secondary weapon for you if you're like a stronger player. But as I said, I think this line is very well. I think it's doing very well anyways. So after bishop to d3, in this particular chapter, we're going to be discussing what happens after the move knight f6. c5 will be discussed in the next chapter, and then we will be looking at de4 as well. So after bishop to d3, black plays knight f6. Here we're going to be playing e5, kicking the knight after knight d7. I really like following Onischuk's footsteps by playing c3. With the idea that we're simply reinforcing our center, and after c5 we can play knight f3. But instead of c5, black also has another option, playing the move b6, which is played with the idea to trade off the bad French bishop with bishop to a6. But we can simply play queen g4, and after bishop a6 we can get rid of it by taking, and after knight x we can play the move knight f3. Black can break with c5, but after castle short, knight c7 and knight b to d2. I mean bishop g5, attacking the queen. And here, for example, if queen c8, we would be playing knight b to d2. But if bishop to e7, we can take first, and then we can collect the g7 pawn. And black does not have a lot of compensation for it, if any. And after queen c8, as I said, we would like to play knight b to d2. And after h6 attacking our bishop, we can simply retreat to e3. And then the plan is to open up the position with c4 and then play something like rook c1. And you can see that the rook will be quite annoying on the c-file against the enemy queen. So white is getting a very nice position. So just keep in mind that b6, you can just include this queen g4 idea before you do anything else. So after c5, we're going to be playing the move knight f3, knight c6, and now castle short. And here it's where black really has a choice. Like I basically analyzed everything that black has. So I think we will just start by analyzing the moves rather than me reading them out loud, because there are like 7 moves that black can play here. But I would really like sum it up with like this. Maybe black can play like bishop e7, castle short, and then also has ideas of playing with h6 and g5. Also, black has another system with cd4 and queen b6. But black can also play queen b6 without taking on d4. So I would pretty much sum it up this way, but we will look at all the alternatives. So starting with bishop to e7, which is preparing to simply develop. I really like the move a3 here, which is preparing to advance with b4 and grab space on the queen side. So here black has again like a few moves at his disposal. We will start by analyzing the most natural one, which is short castle, and after b4, this was the idea of the previous move, grabbing space, cd4, can recapture with a pawn, and after a6, can play the move knight b to d2, and here black doesn't really have anything else than breaking with f6, because something like b5 would allow queen c2, and we're attacking both the c6 knight and the pawn on h7 with a winning position. And after f6, we can take on f6, bishop takes, and play the move bishop b2. And after knight b6, we can simply activate our rook with rook c1, bishop d7, and we can now play rook e1. And yeah, our pieces are basically ideally placed, and we can do something like knight b3 to c5 on the next move with a very nice position for white. Because keep in mind that we have nice pressure on this backward pawn, and then, you know, we could even consider something like bishop b1, queen d3 to set up the battery. So instead of going for short castle, black also has an interesting option of going g5. This is usually something that black can do, but you know, as far as you're not shocked by it, you know, like some people might get really scared here that they might run into like an attack, but you need to know that this is not really all that dangerous, and in fact, black is the one that might be the weakened side at the end of the day after this g5 move. So I can play bishop b3, really important, because when black plays g4, we want to have the d4 pawn well defended. So after g4, we can just retreat with the knight. Now the g4 pawn is under attack, so black plays h5. And now we can continue our idea on the queen side with b4. Pawn takes on d4. We can recapture. And already white is much better, but I think a nice line to show what could potentially happen is that after f5, can take on f6, and then go bishop g6, check, force black to move the king, and then play knight c3. We can simply retreat the bishop to c2 next, and then we have a very nice position, because we could also potentially bring the queen to the king side after like queen d3, and then get queen to g6. Even sometimes we can play something like knight d3 to f4 if our pawn on d4 is well defended. So something like this. Yeah. Yeah, that should cover g5. And instead of this, black can also try to break with f6 like a little bit earlier. In this case, we're going to be replying with taking on f6. And if bishop takes, then we want to be playing the move bishop to e3, which is defending the d4 square. And after pawn takes, we'd like to take with the pawn, just keeping this nice target on e6. And after castle, we can develop our knight to c3, knight to b6. Again, rook c1 comes very natural. And after bishop d7, knight e2 is a very nice move, because this knight might be heading towards e5 one day, because we are considering something like bishop b1, knight f4, knight d3, and then the knight could potentially arrive to e5. So knight e2, bishop e8, knight f4, attacking the e6 pawn, bishop f7 to defend. And now queen c2 is a very strong move to attack black's king side and forcing him to further weaken with g6. And now we can just play queen e2, because the queen has done its job after queen c2. And rook c8. Here it's time to go bishop b5, which is a very strong move. Now there was like no need to go for the battery. Since black has played this g6 move, it would have been pointless. So the idea is just to get rid of this knight, and then we want to secure full control over the e5 square. After taking on c6 and getting the knight to e5 with a very nice advantage for white. Instead of bishop takes on f6, black could also take with a knight, but that could be met with the same b4. That was the idea of pushing a3 a little bit earlier, and after cd4, a6, can play rook e1, activating the rook, and after castle short, I really like here to introduce the other rook into the game by playing rook a2, which is looking forward to transfer to the e file. So bishop d6, we're not going to be transferring immediately, but we will be playing knight b to d2 first, and after bishop d7, knight b3, b6, stopping us from playing knight c5. Now we can bring the rook into the game, and then we can follow it up with knight e5 and f4 with a very nice position for white. So that would be it about f6. Whenever black is breaking with f6, they just creating additional weaknesses that we can play around. So time to switch to c4, which is a very common move, especially in lower rated games. Now also that black, may think that there's like a weak square on b3, but there's actually like no way for black to take advantage of it. So what they actually did with c4 is that black now released the tension into the center, which is simply allowing us to attack him on the king side. So black should be able to somehow counter-strike in the center when we are going for his king, which is not really going to be the case anymore. So after c4, we're going to be playing bishop to c2. Black goes b5 usually. And here I like this idea of going knight e1, which is both opening the path for the queen and also preparing to advance the f pawn. Black castles usually. We go queen h5, threatening to mate. And here there are like a bunch of moves for black. For example, g6 can be met by queen h3, simply sidestepping the attack. And after a5, we can go bishop h6, attack the rook, force rook e8. And after knight d2, rook b8, can simply bring the knight to f3, knight d to f3. And after b4, we can take once, opening up the rook, and then play bishop to a4. Because the bishop wasn't really doing all that much with that pawn restricting it on g6, so we can switch its diagonal. After bishop b7, the knight comes really nicely into the game via c2. Black goes rook a8, and now we can play knight e3. So now the knight is coming to g4, and we can also play like queen g3 and advance the h-pawn with a very nice initiative on the king side, while it's pretty clear that black does not have much going on the other side of the board. So instead of g6, another move is h6, but that allows white to go for an immediate mating attack after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. We are threatening to deliver this sort of thematic checkmate with bishop h7, bishop g6, and then the mate on f7. So black needs to stop that by playing the move f5. But after f5, king go queen g6, king h8, and only with the queen we would be unable to mate him, but we can play f4, which is making room for the rook, and this is completely winning now for white after rook f3 to h3 with a checkmating attack. So h6 not really a great idea here. Black can play f5 actually immediately to stop this, but we can just play the move knight d2, and the main point is obviously that if we take on f6, he will take with a knight, defending the h7 square and also attacking our queen. So after f5, we will be playing the move knight d2, and after a5, we can start trying to open things up on the king side with this g4 move. So black has to play like g6, and after queen h3, white still has a very nice position because we're going to play knight d to f3, get this bishop to h6, and then potentially bring the rook to the g file, and just start creating threats against the enemy king. I could also see this knight getting to the f4 square via g2 and then f4. We can probably take on f5 at any moment, and white just has very easy way to bring the pieces around the enemy king. So I think that should pretty much cover this 8 c4 move, and instead of this, black can also try to play a5, which is a bit of a prophylactic move, saying that I don't really like white having b4, so I may just stop it with a5. But after a5, a fresh weakness has been created on b5, and we can try to take advantage of it by playing the move a4. And after a4, we have this very nice idea of bringing the knight to that square with knight a3 and knight to b5. So here after a4, black usually castles, and after knight a3, cd4, black plays this knight b4 move, attacking our bishop, but we have a very safe move for the bishop, which is bishop to b1, keeping the bishop on this diagonal, eyeing the enemy king, while, also preparing something like knight b5. So after bishop b1, black usually goes b6, knight b5, bishop a6, and now a really nice move is first of all rook e1, sidestepping any tricks on that diagonal and, overprotecting our e5 pawn. And after rook e8, rook a3 is a really nice move, creating all kinds of ideas like h4, knight g5, and then bringing the rook over to the king side. So yeah, white is already much better. Plus knight d6 could also be a very annoying move to face. So there should be a quick fix to a5, and now we can just move on to another move that black has at his disposal, which is cd4. In this position, which we are going to reply by taking, and here black has again like a few moves. We will be starting by covering the immediate f6, which some players tend to go for, but here you have a really nice combo that I highly advise you to memorize. And if you're struggling with this, make sure to head into the move trainer and just keep practicing, keep grinding this line. And at some point, it will really stick into your memory. And then, once you get this, it's like a really powerful combo after knight g5, with the main idea that pawn takes allows queen h5, forcing black to play g6. But now we can sacrifice another piece, and after queen takes, king e7 only move. We can take on g5 with the bishop, and then we are winning, at the very least, the queen, which is some pretty good news, I guess. So white is just completely winning. And yeah, instead of this f6 move, black would also try knight b4, but the only thing that you really need to know is that you want to almost always avoid this trade if possible. So you just keep the bishop, or bishop e2, bishop e7, knight c3, and now we can kick the knight back with a3, knight c6, rook to e1, activating the rook, and after f6 we can take knight takes, and now bishop d3. Now that there is no knight on b4, we can again use that square for our bishop, and yeah, we basically have a version of the Tarrasch variation of the French, which is after knight d2, knight f6, only that we have just a much better version. We could simply play something like bishop g5, rook c1, and then like all kinds of knight e5 ideas that we have. Maybe even start with after we do this, we can even create this battery first, and then like knight e5. So white is doing very well here. Instead of this knight b4, the most common move after taking is to go for queen b6. But after queen b6, as I said in the quick starter, you can play bishop c2, but even better to just gambit that pawn with knight c3. And after knight takes on d4, we can play knight b5, attack the queen, rook e1, queen b8, and queen g4. Here is where we stopped in the quick starter, saying that bishop f4 is a very annoying threat. Black can try knight f6, but here white has a very strong move, which is queen a4, threatening a very unpleasant double check with knight c7. And after bishop d7, bishop f4 is still very strong. And after queen d8, queen b3. Black is losing material because this knight c7 threat is really annoying, and his king is caught in the center. So white is much better. Instead of cd4, black can also try to go for f6 immediately. But the thing with f6 is usually that you always need to consider this idea of knight g5. And here it's again the case, because if pawn takes, the same tactic applies. We can go queen h5, and after g6, the same bishop sack as we've seen earlier, and king e7, we can take on g5, winning the queen. So after knight g5, black's only real try is to go knight d takes on e5, but after pawn takes on g5, same queen h5 is quite problematic, and after king d7, we can take on g5. We're no longer winning material, but white keeps a much better position after the important c4 here, opening up the position against the enemy king. So yeah, f6 is no good. Therefore, black can try going for h6, which is a multi-purpose move. Could also be considered as a waiting move. I mainly view it as preparing g5. So when they play h6, I'm mostly thinking that they're looking forward to try to go for this early attack on the king side. which, as I said, it might look quite scary at first, but usually it's not really something that you need to be afraid of. And yeah, it's in this particular case, it's really not that great. I mean, it's usually quite interesting in the 392 French in the Taraj variation, but here you shouldn't really be afraid of it. So here we're going to be playing the same A3. We're basically just threatening to squeeze black on the queen side with B4. So after A3, black has a number of moves. If C4, for example, we can just play the move bishop to C2. And after B5, same 91 as previously. And after knight B6, can play F4 with a nice attack on the king side with F5 in mind. After A3, another move is A6, but we can just push B4, and after CD4, B5. It's basically a symmetrical position where we have the extra space, so this is simply better for us. Can play bishop E3, and after knight B6, knight FD2 is quite precise, and with the idea that knight C4 is going to be met by knight takes on C4. And now D takes on C4 would allow bishop E4, which is already much better for white. With D5 ideas and pressure on the C6 knight. If B takes, then we can just play bishop to C2, bishop E7, knight C3, castle shot, and the queen is now very active on H5. We can break with F4, F5, or even play like F4, then swing the rook, with like F5, bishop takes H6 ideas. There's like a lot of ideas that white can go for with such a good position. So, A6 again, not solving black's issues. So, another idea would be to stop white's B4 push by playing A5. Or we can simply play A4 with the idea of playing knight A3, knight B5 with very similar play to what we've seen previously in the bishop E7 and the A5 line. So, no need to go over this again. And we can finally come down to this G5 move, which is the sort of one of the main ideas behind this H6 push. So we're going to be replying to it as in the bishop E7 case. We can just play bishop E3, making sure that our D4 pawn is well defended. When black plays G4, so after G4, we can play 91. Black goes H5 usually. And now we continue our play on the queen side with B4. Black can try to block things here with C4, or we can just play bishop C2. And if, for example, black tries this aggressive F5 move, there's no need to take on F6, but we can just play G3, which is preparing many ideas. One of them would be to bring the knight to F4 with a very nice square for the knight. Play could continue H4, and after knight G2, pawn takes on G3. I really like taking with the F-pawn, and you will see in a second why, because there are some interesting ideas here. This is not really like a very theoretical position. Like, I don't really expect a lot of games from this position, but this is just for you to know that there's no need to be afraid of any attack on the H file. For example, after queen E7, we can just play queen E2 and mate queen H7 with this super crazy H4 idea. Meeting G takes on H3 with knight F4, and after knight B6 we can just play king H2, and you can see that the king is very safe on H2, and we're using this pawn as a shield. So after bishop D7 we can start the initiative on the queen side with A4, and white is just much better. So that should pretty much sum it up about this G5 ideas, and we can move on to queen B6 here. And black is threatening to take on D4 twice, but we can just play bishop to C2, defending our D4 pawn. And we're threatening to push B4, so black can try this A5 move, stopping us from getting B4. But the same reaction, we go A4, fix this weak square, and we have knight A3, knight B5 ideas. Black can try this knight B4 thing, because we can no longer go bishop B1, but there's no problem with this, since we can just play bishop to B3 to keep our bishop, and after the bishop E7 we can develop via C3, and after castles bishop E3 is quite nice. And for example, bishop takes on H6 was another interesting bishop takes on h6 is another interesting idea. Sorry, I think I've clicked on the wrong line. So yeah, here after bishop e3, knight b8. This is usually what black plays in order to reroute the knights. We can just play queen d2, preparing bishop takes h6 idea. This is really what I meant. And after knight to c6, bishop takes on h6 is not quite yet possible, because after takes and knight takes on d4, knight g5, there's nothing better than a perpetual. But instead of going for the immediate bishop takes, we can activate our knight first with knight to b5, improving our knight, defending this pawn, and then we're ready to sack, for example. So black has to play king h7, defending against it. But we can play rook c1, and then we can just play knight e1, get this knight to d3, then push f4. What a very nice position for white. So this should pretty much sum things up about this h6 move. As I said, what I really believe it's the main idea behind it is to go for this quick attack with g5, but just keep in mind, play bishop e3, defend your d4 pawn, and as long as you don't lose your central pawns, I think you should be good to go. So yeah, instead of this, black would try to go for the super crazy c4, because why I'm calling this crazy, it is because yeah, this is very common for lower rated games, and this is again like quite a poor strategical move, because it's not keeping the central tension, and it's going to give us a free hand on the king side, which usually black wants to react to white's attack by trying to create some counterplay based on f6 or something like that. But it's going to be much trickier once c4 gets played, as you will see. So after c4, we're just playing bishop to c2, and after bishop e7, knight e1 is nice, castles, queen h5, attacking on h7. Black has two options. One of them is g6, another one is f5. On h6, I believe we can take it with a winning attack, as we've seen before. And if g6, we can play queen h6, rook e8, knight d2. And the idea of this is just to get this knight to f3 and then play bishop g5, is, if allowed, trading the dark squared bishops. Bishop f8, queen h3. And now we can push f4, and after a5, g4, and we are ready to push f5 with just a crashing attack against the enemy king. So instead of g6, black can try the more solid f5, but again, we're going to be using this idea of opening things up with g4. After g6, queen h3, we have a very similar position to what we've seen before. Going to bring this knight to f3, as I said. Same plan applies. Instead of c4, again, very rare move, but sometimes played, a5 here. It's also something that's occasionally tried in online games, but we can just try to take advantage of this weekend square by playing knight a3, and after bishop to e7, you can play knight b5. And once black does go for short castle, you can play bishop f4, and after a4, rook e1, knight b6. I really like the move knight d6, with the idea that bishop takes runs into an immediate attack after bishop takes on h7, which is the so-called Greek gift. King takes, we go knight g5, and after king g8, white is creating this mating construction after queen h5, threatening both queen h7 and queen f7 if the rook moves away. So this is winning for white, and after king g6, really important to play queen d3 and mate f5 with queen g3, and suddenly there is no good move for black, and knight takes on e6 is a huge threat, so white is completely winning. So now that we covered most of the alternatives that black has, we can come to the main move, which is queen b6. And yeah, here it's really important that you remember the next move, because if you don't, it may affect the quality of your game quite dramatically, because the next move is really important, and in order to learn it easier, I would suggest you to go into the move trainer and just practice this particular line quite a lot, because here white has a very strong d takes on c5, and this move is not really so natural, because ideally we would love to keep our pawn center, but this works really well here because this is kind of typical if we compare this to like an advanced variation of the French, but here is just that black's pieces are having a poor coordination, and we can get like a lot of tempis by hitting black's pieces with b4, a4, and so on, as you will see. So here, after taking, black has a choice. We will start with knight takes on c5. Obviously, we're going to be keeping the bishop with bishop to c2. As I said, we'll most never want to allow black to take our bishop for free like that. We can play bishop c2. And after bishop e7, rook e1, black can castle short. For example, if a5, we can just play a4. And then the b5 square is really weak. We can consider ideas of getting the knight to b5. And if after rook e1, black plays for a short castle, we can just play knight b2 d2, queen c7, and now knight b3 is really nice with the idea that knight takes on b3. We will take with the a pawn, opening up our rook, and also preparing to push b4, b5, annoying the enemy knight. And after knight b3, b6 is a better move, but we can just play bishop f4. And after bishop b7, we can follow it up with knight b2, d4. And white has a really nice position here, and we can continue with something like h4, push the h-pawn all the way to the h6 square if allowed. If black plays h6 himself, we will have queen d2 and bishop takes on h6 ideas. And if we get actually the pawn to h6 and black plays g6, then we can play like queen e2 and try to trade this dark squared bishop and hopefully land the queen to g7. Obviously easier said than done, but that would pretty much be the game plan. So instead of knight takes on c5, black also has this queen c7 alternative, which is trying to focus on the e5 pawn. But this is actually like not really that important, since we can just play b4 and keep our pawn on c5. And you'll see that our pawns on the queen side are actually quite dangerous. So after knight takes, we can play bishop f4, forcing knight takes on f3. And after queen takes on f3, white has a really nice leading development. Black has to move the queen. We can continue with like bringing the knight to b3, and then a4, b5 ideas. And yeah, black is really struggling to finish his development. So instead of this, bishop takes on c5 is the main move, developing the bishop, but this is now running into this b4 move, attacking the bishop. This is really important because now after bishop e7, we want to be defending our e5 pawn because it's under attack. So after queen e2, keeping an eye on the e5 pawn, black goes for a short castle. And now after a4, we could really like easily stop in this position, saying that white is better, with ideas of bringing the bishop to f4 and then knight b2 d2, knight b3, and so on. But I decided to cover like a few more moves here. For example, if black breaks with f6, or if black plays a6, we can continue with bishop f4. If queen c7, knight comes to d2, and if b6, the knight goes to b3, bishop b7, rook e1, again overprotecting the critical pawn on e5. After rook c8, rook c1, making sure that the c3 pawn is defended, queen d8. And now I really like bishop to b1, preparing to play queen d3, threatening queen h7, and we can also start advancing the h pawn at any point, with just a very nice position for white overall. So instead of this, black would also try to be a bit more creative and break with f6, but this is only leading to a good position for white. After taking on f6, knight takes, and now b5, attacking the knight. Black can go knight a5. After knight b2 d2, making sure that there are no knight b3 jumps. Bishop c5, we can just play bishop to b2. Looks a little bit clumsy at first, but we are going to break with c4 next, activating the bishop. And you will see just a huge difference between this bishop on d3 and the one on c8. So white will be already much better here. And this, with that being said, I think we can wrap this session up about this bishop d3 and knight f6 move. As I said, make sure to remember this little key ideas, such as this one with queen b6, take on c5. Again, if you're struggling to remember this line, make sure to hop into the move trainer and do the practice. And I will see you in the next chapter. Thanks for watching.